Okay, so as an outsider, as a working class Englishman from a small ex-steel making seaside town called Redcar, I've looked at the situation in your country and I needed to have my say. Why? Well, because the United States of America is, at the end of the day, the most powerful country on God's earth, and what happens there affects us all, including this Englishman, and so to me. That gives me the right to wear the views I hold, based on the things which now I see. I have no dog in your fight. I'm sitting on the fence. I don't know much about Joe Biden because it seems the media only want to talk about Trump and Pence. I've been of the left all my life, a working class socialist, blue collar trade unionist and a red. But I cannot stand the one-sided, hypocritical, progressive liberal left and globalist bullshit that we're all now being fed. And so I'll tell you what's in my heart, whether you like it or not, because it's my truth. And as far as I can see, I look at your country, your wounded, bleeding country, and I see a proud people and a proud nation and a land that's torn by violence, segregation, anarchy and spite. I see lawlessness, destruction and chaos taking place both day and night. And the spark that lit the blue touch paper for all this violence was a black man's death at the hands of a white policeman who deprived him of his breath. This shameful ending of a life at the hands of the police should have touched even the most racist hearts. And it prompted angry but peaceful demonstrations as pissed off people took to the streets. And then, as far as I can see, things took a turn for the worse when a political group, some say freedom fighters, some say Marxists, called Black Lives Matter, got involved and stirred the pot. And these peaceful demonstrations turned into full-blown riots and things became white hot. Anarchist group Antifa, as far as I can see, a bunch of privileged white folks then got involved and saw their chance to attack Donald Trump, who they hate so much, and they too joined in the dance. Black Lives Matter and Antifa then blamed Donald Trump for this black man's killing, and I couldn't see the link. It seemed a bit unfair to me because Trump was more than willing to have this policeman and those there with him arrested and charged with murder in the second. Trump didn't let the guilty get away. And from that moment, for those policemen, prison always beckoned. But that wasn't good enough for Black Lives Matter and Antifa. They called for the police to be defunded and be disbanded. And democratic politicians all agreed. They all joined in the dance. They all jumped on the bandwagon. As far as I can see, they all started virtue signalling. And they blamed all the riots and the violence on the police for being heavy-handed. As an outsider, as a working class Englishman, as far as I can see, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but these democratic politicians in democratic held states didn't really condemn the violence and the rioting that was now going strong. Oh, they made empty statements in the press so as to try to appeal to every faction. But in truth, these democratic politicians didn't stop the rioting. These politicians took no action. And in a civilized society, that can't be allowed to happen. You can't have anarchy on the streets. You can't have communities being ripped apart. You can't surrender and admit defeat to people who are willfully harming innocents and burning buildings to the ground. But in these democratic held states, these democratic governors and mayors and judges and politicians did just that. They stood silently watching. They barely raised a whisper. They hardly made a sound. Now, I'm an outsider. I'm a working class Englishman looking in, and I can see you've got your president, and he's your democratically elected president. And he has to keep your country safe, and he can't watch your country burn. And it was at this point I saw the politics, the filthy, dirty politics that were being played by people who were trying to leave your president with no way to turn. Because if he failed to take action against the anarchy, then he'd be charged with not being a strong enough leader and blamed for the now burning, scarred US. But if he took action against the anarchy, as he did do because these democratic politicians wouldn't, then he gets blamed for more police brutality, violence and excess. These people are clever, wickedly clever, these democratic politicians and these extreme factions and the press had created a lose-lose situation for your president with an election just months away. And I could see their plan, their strategy, and I could see it as plain as day. They'd caused and were allowing all this violence to try and get rid of your president in November. And once my eyes had seen this uncomfortable truth, I couldn't unsee it. This truth became mine. It was my truth, and my heart wouldn't let this truth go away. And as far as I can see, for me, the truth is that these groups and people and these politicians and the press had hijacked a black man's death. To them, all this mayhem was just a game. To them, the riots and the violence and the anarchy was just a way of pushing their political aim. And this political aim was being pushed by heavy people who'd been playing on the fears and base emotions of ordinary black people who had suffered for years and who, as a result, harboured frightened, fearful thoughts and notions. And the anarchy, well, the anarchy was just another example in a very long line of a 4-year campaign of dirty tricks and politics to try and oust a president, a democratically elected president who, by the way, was no friend politically of mine. But even though that's the case, I cannot and will not stand by and watch what in essence is a coup d'etat taking place, a coup d'etat that started on the day of his inauguration, by your anti-globalist president being bombarded with half-truths and lies and smears to the point of crazy saturation, from Russia to his wife, to his children, to his hair, to his orange face. These attacks and smears were designed to break. From his advocacy of hydroxychloroquine as a treatment for COVID-19, along with doctors from around the world, to Kanye West defending him, to him even liking ketchup on his steak. But as an outsider, as a working class Englishman, I've seen that your president has faced all these attacks and smears down, and one by one he's shown his globalist assassins defeat. He picked the presidency from the pocket of globalism 4 years ago, and they hate him for it. He put black people back to work in their millions, and he put your country's economy back on its feet, and he hasn't brought war into the world on anywhere near the same scale as Clinton and Obama, who bombed more countries than George W. Bush, 7 in total. They dropped 27,000 bombs in 1 year on some of the poorest countries in this world. Google it if you don't believe me. And the press, they backed them without any drama. And did you know that Obama deported 3 million people from your country, more than any other president? Google it if you don't believe me, to earn himself the dubious title of Deporter-in-Chief. He held single mother asylum seekers and their children in private jails before he sent them back. Google it if you don't believe me. And from the Democratic politicians and the extreme factions and the press who were attacking Trump now for less, Obama took no grief. And what about all the black people who died at the hands of enforcers of the law? Where was the outrage when these people were killed under Obama's watch? Where were Black Lives Matters and Antifa's riots and violence on an equal scale and more? And where was the condemnation? Where was the remorse, the regret, when an aging black policeman who was trying to stop the looting ended up dead in a pool of blood on a pavement in the dead of night, gunned down cold-bloodedly on the receiving end of a shooting? As far as I can see, it seems to me that some Black Lives matter more to Black Lives Matters than others. And why is it when these black communities are being smashed to bits by Antifa, white privileged folks, Black Lives Matter don't seem to care about their sisters and their brothers? All they seem to care about, all of them, is this one political aim, even though it's causing the division and segregation of ordinary working class people, black and white, in your already terribly divided nation. And it's this hypocrisy, this madness I cannot stand, calling for your president's impeachment on the day of his inauguration before he'd even got the keys to the White House, is as crazy, as insane as it is unjust. So if we can't put our faith and belief in truth and democracy, then as it says on your dollar, it really is God in who we trust. As an outsider, as a working class Englishman, all the people involved, all of them should hang their heads in shame. The politicians and the extreme factions and the press, they've sought to undermine democracy in your country on behalf of globalism. And they've left your country in a burning, bleeding mess. They've tried to steal your prize of freedom. They've tried to put power back into the hands of a small, corrupted few. And this tiny group of people, they have no love of black and white. They have no love of our children, of me and you. They have no love of the thought, the notion, even the idea of democracy. They have no love of the stars and stripes. They have no love of the red, the white and blue. This small group of people, these globalists, they want total control. They want us all to be their slaves, be it all the people born in the USA or all the people born in my country, in England, across the waves. I know I'm just an outsider. I know I'm just a working class Englishman from a small ex-steel making seaside town called Redcar. But as far as I can see, I hope that you all wake up to the fact that you're being used and unite together against these people who are playing politics with all our lives. And on behalf of our children, united, your nation, you lead the world to truly, truly being free.